Hi, my name is Emily Carter, and I've always believed that family is supposed to be your safe place, the people who know you best, who love you no matter what. But sometimes the people who are closest to you can hurt you the most. And last year, I learned that lesson the hard way. It all started on a Tuesday night in Ohio. I was alone in my small apartment, curled up on the couch in my favorite hoodie, scrolling through my phone. Work had been stressful, my friends were busy, and I was honestly just trying to wind down with some mindless videos. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from Lauren, my older sister. Now, Lauren and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's the kind of person everyone notices when she walks into a room. Confident, loud, seemingly perfect. And I'm quieter, more reserved, and I've always felt like I live in her shadow. But I never expected her to do something like this. There were no words with the message, just an audio file. No explanation, no context, just a file named listen carefully .mp3 double quotes. My heart started pounding. A strange mix of curiosity and dread washing over me. I hesitated. I stared at the file for a few seconds, my finger hovering over the play button. A part of me wanted to delete it immediately, pretend I never saw it, but another part of me, the part that had always wanted to understand her, that wanted to know why, told me to listen. I pressed play. The voices of my parents filled my tiny living room. Their conversation was soft at first, almost casual, but then it hit me. They were talking about me. My mother's voice was clipped, a hint of frustration in her tone. I just don't know, Lauren. Emily, she's so sensitive. I worry she's never going to fit in the world. Then my father sighed, a low, tired sound. I know, sometimes I wish she was more like you, more confident, more capable. My stomach dropped. I felt my chest tighten, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. Words I'd only imagined they might think were being spoken aloud in real time, and they sounded worse than anything I had feared. And then Lauren sent another message. Just a line of text. I thought you deserved to know what they say when you're not around. I froze. My phone slipped from my hands, clattering softly onto the floor. My hands were shaking. My throat felt tight, like I'd swallowed a stone. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw my phone across the room, but all I could do was sit there, stunned. Replaying the audio over and over, I felt every emotion at once: betrayal, hurt, humiliation, and an almost sickening disbelief that someone so close to me could do this. Lauren had just weaponized my own family against me, and it wasn't just a prank or a mean joke. It was carefully timed, targeted, and meant to hurt me deeply. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to please my parents, trying to live up to expectations, trying to avoid conflict. And here was Lauren, apparently enjoying the pain she caused, sending me a recording she knew would shatter me. I lay back on the couch, pulling a blanket around myself, staring at the ceiling. I wanted to believe there was some mistake, that I had misunderstood, but deep down, I knew this was deliberate. And yet, there was a small, quiet voice inside me, almost whispering, don't react yet. Watch, learn, wait, because something about the audio felt off, though I didn't know why yet. The pauses were strange, the tone uneven. It wasn't just a conversation. It was edited, constructed, designed for maximum impact. But I didn't realize that yet. That revelation would come later, and it would change everything. That night, I cried until my chest ached. I felt betrayed by my sister, hurt by my parents, and completely alone. But even in that darkness, a tiny spark of resolve began to grow. Lauren thought she had won, but she didn't know the fire she had just ignited. The message that was meant to break me was about to backfire in a way she could never imagine. After that night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the audio, my parents' voices echoing in my head, and Lauren's smug message like a knife twisting in my chest. I felt a mix of anger, disbelief, and heartbreak. I had always known our family was complicated, but I never imagined it would feel like this, like I was the target of a carefully calculated attack. Lauren had always been the golden child. She could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. She got the praise for good grades, the awards for every achievement, and the vacations and gifts I could only dream of. Meanwhile, I was the quiet, sensitive one, the one who needed to toughen up, the one whose mistakes were magnified, whose successes were downplayed. I thought we were close, sisters who shared secrets and supported each other. I thought I could trust her, but that audio file shattered all of that doubt. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't the first time Lauren had used me or manipulated our family dynamics. She was always the smart one, the popular one, the one everyone listened to. And somehow I always seemed to be the one left questioning myself, wondering if I was overreacting, imagining things, or being too sensitive. Lauren had this way of twisting everything to her advantage without anyone noticing. I remembered small incidents from the past, things that didn't make sense at the time. The way she would casually drop hints to my parents about something I said, making it sound worse than it was. The way she exaggerated stories about me to friends or family members to make me look bad. The way she seemed to charm everyone around her while I quietly recoiled, confused and frustrated. I never realized these moments were part of a pattern. I just thought she was lucky, confident, maybe even a little mean. And now, this recording, it was a new level. She didn't just want to make me look bad. She wanted me to feel humiliated, powerless, and exposed. And for a moment, it worked. I curled up in my bed, hugging my pillow, wishing I could disappear. Wishing I could rewind my life and somehow fix this, but as the initial wave of hurt began to fade, a different feeling started to grow, something I hadn't expected, suspicion. Something about the recording didn't sit right with me. My parents' voices sounded chopped, uneven. Some parts of the conversation felt too abrupt, too perfectly timed to hurt me. My gut screamed that this wasn't just a casual recording, it had been edited. Manipulated, made to look like something it wasn't. I was terrified to admit it, even to myself. But part of me realized that if Lauren had gone to the trouble of editing the recording, she had done this before, or at least she had the capability to do it again. She was dangerous in a way I had underestimated for years. I couldn't ignore the patterns anymore. All those times I had felt blamed, misunderstood, or punished unfairly, it wasn't just bad luck. It wasn't just my sensitivity. Lauren had been shaping the story for years, twisting reality to make herself look perfect and me look weak. And for the first time, I saw the full picture. She wasn't just my sister. She was a master manipulator. That realization was terrifying, but it also sparked something else, determination. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I wasn't going to let her control how my family saw me or how I saw myself. I didn't know yet how I was going to respond, but I knew I couldn't stay silent. I couldn't let her think she had won, so I did what I do best. I waited. I watched. I listened. I started paying attention to details I'd always ignored, her texts, her social media, her stories. The more I observed, the more I noticed the little slips, the little manipulations, the little lies she had left behind. Lauren had thought she had all the power. She had thought I was broken, that I would crumble in humiliation. But she didn't know me. She didn't know how deeply I could feel, or how fiercely I could fight when pushed too far. And that fight was just beginning. After days of sitting in my apartment replaying that audio over and over, I started noticing the little things that didn't make sense. I couldn't shake the feeling that something about the recording was off. My parents' voices, the way they paused, the sudden shifts in tone, it wasn't natural. It was edited. That realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Lauren hadn't just sent me a recording of my parents talking. She had carefully constructed it to hurt me. I felt a mix of anger and fear. Anger because she had deliberately tried to destroy me. Fear because if she had done this once, she could do it again, and she was smart enough to hide her tracks. She had been manipulating people for years, and now I had to figure out exactly what she had done. I started small. I knew enough about technology from my work in digital marketing to dig into the metadata of the audio file. Every file contains hidden information, timestamps, edits, even the device that recorded it. I opened it on my laptop, my heart racing. The first thing I noticed was the timestamps. They jumped forward unexpectedly. There were gaps of several seconds where nothing was recorded. That meant Lauren had cut parts out, probably the parts that would make me look better or make the conversation less damning. Then I noticed the audio shifts. Some sections were louder, others quieter. There were tiny glitches between sentences, like someone had spliced them together. The conversation I had been replaying over and over wasn't even real. It was a carefully edited version of a real argument. Lauren had taken bits and pieces, rearranged them, and created something designed to devastate me. I felt a strange mix of emotions, shock, anger, but also relief. Relief because I realized my parents hadn't said everything in the recording exactly like that. Relief because maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the failure Lauren had painted me as. But then I realized something else. This wasn't just an attack, it was a trap. Lauren had counted on me believing it completely, feeling broken, and reacting emotionally. And now I had a choice. I could crumble as she expected, or I could fight back. I decided I had to know the full story. I couldn't rely on speculation, I needed proof. I started calling my parents casually, making small talk, trying to fill them out without revealing what I knew. I asked them about that night indirectly, and something told me they weren't fully aware that the recording even existed. That terrified me. Lauren had been acting alone, editing my family's words to make me feel worthless. Next, I looked for patterns. I checked our old messages, social media posts, even texts I'd ignored before. Little clues emerged. Lauren had a habit of deleting original messages and leaving only the ones that painted her favorably. She had sent screenshots selectively, leaving out context. The more I dug, the clearer it became. Everything she did was calculated. She didn't just want to hurt me. She wanted to control the narrative completely. By the end of the week, I had developed a plan. I would not confront her blindly. I wouldn't scream or cry in front of my family. I would gather the evidence, figure out the truth, and expose her manipulations. I wanted her to see that she couldn't control me anymore. I also started keeping a record of her behavior, screenshots of messages, timestamps, even notes about how she twisted situations. Every tiny detail could become important. I realized that Lauren had underestimated me. She thought I would crumble. She thought I would sit quietly, humiliated and defeated. But she didn't know me. Late one night, after another long session, analyzing the audio and reviewing old messages, I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. My apartment was dark except for the glow of my laptop screen, and I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and determination. The anger that had once consumed me was now focused. I wasn't going to let her win. Lauren had tried to break me. She had tried to destroy my relationship with my parents. But she had also made a mistake. She had left evidence, and I intended to use it. This was no longer just about proving I wasn't worthless. It was about taking back control, about showing her that manipulation has consequences. And I had the first piece of my plan in place. Lauren thought she had the upper hand. She thought she had destroyed me, but she didn't know that I had started playing her game. and I was about to change the rules. Asterisk. After days of analyzing the recording and piecing together the little clues Lauren had left behind, I knew I couldn't stay in the dark any longer. I had to go straight to the source, my parents. But even thinking about it made my stomach twist in knots. I wasn't sure how they would react or if they would believe me. What if they sided with Lauren? What if they thought I was imagining things, or worse, what if they blamed me for overreacting? Still, I couldn't wait any longer. I packed a small bag and drove 3 hours to my parents' house. The road was dark, the highway empty, and with every mile, my mind raced through every possible scenario. I rehearsed what I would say, how I could approach them without sounding accusatory. I wanted answers, not arguments. When I arrived, my parents were surprised but happy to see me. Their hugs felt warmer than I expected, but there was a tension in the air I couldn't ignore. After some small talk, I finally asked the question I had been dreading. Mom, Dad, did Lauren record you that night? The room went quiet. My mother's face drained of color, her hands trembling slightly. My father looked down at the floor, his jaw tight. That silence was worse than any outburst. They weren't denying it, but they weren't confirming it either. I felt my heart race, wondering if I had misjudged everything. Finally, my mother spoke. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. Emily, yes, she did. But you have to understand, she didn't tell us she would send it to you. We didn't know. My father sighed deeply, running a hand over his face. We were arguing that night. We said things we didn't mean, things we regret. But Lauren, she recorded it without telling us, and then she manipulated it. I felt a wave of relief mixed with rage. Relief because it wasn't exactly what I had thought. It wasn't that my parents hated me or didn't care about me. Rage because Lauren had deliberately taken something private, twisted it, and sent it to hurt me. But what shook me the most was the next part. My parents admitted that Lauren had been manipulating family narratives for years. She had shared selective messages, twisted words, and even created arguments that weren't really happening, all to make herself look perfect and me look flawed. Every small incident I had brushed off or doubted. Every time I felt like I was imagining things suddenly made sense. Lauren had been doing this for a long time. I felt a mix of emotions I couldn't name. Shock, anger, betrayal, but also clarity. For the first time, I understood the bigger picture. Lauren wasn't just my sister. She was a master manipulator, quietly wielding control over everyone in the family. I also realized something important. I wasn't powerless. If Lauren had left, traces of her manipulation, the edited audio, the selective messages, the inconsistencies, I could use that. I could gather proof, expose her carefully, and take back control. But I had to be smart. I couldn't confront her recklessly. I needed a plan. As I sat with my parents, talking through every detail, I began to piece together a timeline. I asked questions about the night of the recording, about other incidents that didn't make sense, about times Lauren had acted suspiciously. They remembered things in fragments, but each memory added to the puzzle. The more I learned, the more I understood how meticulous she had been. Every lie, every manipulation, every carefully crafted moment had been part of a strategy to control our family's perception of me. By the time I left my parents' house, the sun was setting. The sky was painted with deep oranges and purples, but I didn't feel peaceful. I felt determined. I had evidence, I had understanding, and I had the will to set things right. Lauren had thought she had broken me. She had thought she could manipulate my family and humiliate me without consequence, but she had underestimated me. I wasn't going to react in anger or despair. I was going to fight smart, gather proof, and show everyone the truth that night. As I drove back home, I didn't feel like the little sister living in her shadow anymore. I felt like someone who had finally seen through the lies, someone who could take control, someone who was no longer a victim. And deep down, I knew Lauren had no idea what was coming next. Asterisk. After my conversation with my parents, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just reacting anymore, I was observing. For the first time in my life, I stopped seeing Lauren as just my sister and started seeing her for who she really was. And once I did, the pattern became impossible to ignore. On the drive back to my apartment, memories surfaced one by one, like puzzle pieces finally snapping into place. Moments I had brushed off for years suddenly felt sinister. Times when relatives acted cold toward me for no clear reason. Friends who slowly drifted away after spending time with Lauren. Family arguments that somehow always ended with me looking unreasonable, dramatic, or unstable. It wasn't random. It was intentional. I started reaching out carefully, not accusing anyone, just asking questions. I called my aunt first. The one Lauren had always said was toxic and jealous. I asked her casually if she remembered the argument from a few years ago. The one that supposedly started because of something I said. She hesitated, then said quietly, "Emily, that's not how I remember it at all." My heart skipped. She told me Lauren had shown her screenshots of messages. I'd allegedly sent messages that painted me as rude and ungrateful. But when my aunt described them, something felt wrong. The wording didn't sound like me. The tone was off. And then she said something that made my stomach drop. I always thought it was strange, she said, because Lauren wouldn't let me see the full conversation. That night, I barely slept. I moved on to cousins, old friends, even a former coworker Lauren and I had both known. Each conversation revealed the same thing: selective truth, cropped screenshots, edited voice notes, carefully chosen stories that made Lauren look like the victim and me look like the problem. And then came the message that changed everything. Cousin texted me late one night, "Emily, I still have the full recording." My hands started shaking. She explained that Lauren had originally sent her the audio months earlier before editing it down and sending it to me. At the time, my cousin had felt uncomfortable and saved the file. Unsure why. She sent it to me. When I pressed play, my chest tightened, but this time, not with shame. With clarity. The full recording was longer. Messier. Human. Yes, my parents were frustrated. Yes, they said things they regretted. But they also defended me. They talked about my kindness, my resilience, my struggles. They expressed worry, not contempt. Lauren had removed every single part that showed compassion. I sat on my bed, tears streaming down my face, not because I was broken, but because I finally understood the truth. The story I had been fed wasn't just incomplete. It was engineered. That was the moment. I stopped doubting myself completely. Lauren didn't just hurt people impulsively. She curated pain. She collected moments of vulnerability and weaponized them. And worse, she enjoyed the control it gave her, but she had made a critical mistake. She had underestimated how much evidence she'd left behind. I began organizing everything: screenshots, audio files, timestamps, messages. Where she bragged, slipped up, or contradicted herself. I didn't rush. I didn't confront her. Instead, I watched and Lauren. She grew bolder. She texted me smug little comments, pretending to check on me while clearly enjoying my silence. She hinted at truths she could expose if she wanted. She even suggested casually that maybe the family needed to hear things together. That's when I realized what she was planning. She wanted a public moment. She wanted humiliation. And for the first time, I smiled because I finally understood something powerful. People like Lauren only win when no one sees the full picture, and I had the full picture now. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. I let her believe I was defeated. I thanked her for opening my eyes. I played the role she expected, the quiet sister who finally accepted her place. All the while, I was preparing because if Lauren wanted a moment in front of everyone, I was going to give her one dot, and this time, the truth wouldn't be edited dot. By the time the weekend rolled around, Lauren was completely convinced she had me cornered. She didn't know I had listened to the full recording, that I had screenshots, timestamps, and evidence of every manipulative move she had made over the years. In her mind, she had all the power, and that's exactly how I wanted it. I put on the mask of the quiet, defeated sister. I texted her back politely, almost sweetly, thanking her for opening my eyes. I nodded to the audio she sent me, pretending it had devastated me. I even sent a short reply that suggested I had accepted her version of events. Lauren was delighted. Her replies became playful, teasing, even cocky. She sent me little comments like, "Finally seeing things clearly, huh? And it's okay, Emily. Everyone needs a wake-up call sometimes." She thought she had won, that I was crushed and humiliated exactly as she intended. The best part? She didn't even notice I was watching her every move. I started documenting everything. Every boast, every brag, every careless slip she made in messages or phone calls. She had no idea that I wasn't just listening, I was gathering evidence. I saved screenshots, recorded conversations where she implied things she had no right to, even kept timestamps of texts that contradicted her stories. Each small mistake became another thread in the web. I was quietly weaving dot. Lauren was careless because she was confident. And confidence is dangerous, especially when it blinds you. She thought I was too weak to fight back. She thought no one would believe me if I told the truth. She thought I would crumble quietly in the corner, nursing my heartbreak and shame dot. She was wrong. I let her think she was in control while I started planning my counter. I imagined the family gathering where she could show off the edited audio, expecting everyone to gasp in sympathy for her version of events. I pictured the proud look on her face as she smugly pointed out my flaws. And I smiled because when that moment came, she wouldn't just be wrong, she would be exposed. Over the next few days, I kept the charade going. I allowed her to send me longer messages, some of them almost confessions of her manipulations. She bragged about knowing how to control the narrative, how she had everyone fooled for years, and how I was finally learning my place. I responded with short, neutral texts. Pretending to digest her lessons, she even started hinting at a bigger reveal. A family dinner, she said casually, where she would clear the air about everything. That was exactly what I had been waiting for. She had picked the time, the place, and the audience herself. She had handed me the perfect stage, but before that night, I had one more thing to do. I went through all the evidence I had gathered, the uncut audio, the screenshots, the messages, the inconsistencies, and organized it into a chronological narrative. Every manipulation, every edit, every lie had a timestamp, a proof, a record. For the first time, I felt calm. I knew exactly what I would do. I didn't need to yell or scream. I didn't need to cry or beg for understanding. I just needed to let Lauren's own actions speak for themselves and make sure that everyone saw the full story. She had spent years building a web of control. She had thought she could humiliate me publicly and get away with it. She had thought I would crumble. Little did she know, I was about to turn the tables completely, and when the family gathered that night, every lie she had told, every manipulation she had crafted, every edited word she had weaponized against me would backfire in a way she could never imagine. She thought she had won, but she didn't know the game had changed. The night of my parents' anniversary dinner finally arrived. I walked into the house with my heart pounding, but my face calm. The living room was full relatives, close family friends, people who had known us for years. Laughter filled the space, glasses clinked, and everything looked warm and normal. Too normal, considering what was about to happen. Lauren was already there, standing near the center of the room like she owned it, confident, smiling, radiating control. When she saw me, her lips curved into that familiar, smug smile, the one that said I broke you. She hugged me tightly, just a little too tightly, and whispered, "I'm proud of you for being mature about everything." I nodded. Quiet, cooperative, exactly how she wanted me. Dinner passed with small talk and forced smiles. I barely tasted the food. My fingers were cold, but my mind was sharp. I had rehearsed this moment 100 times. I knew exactly what was coming, and then Lauren stood up. She tapped her glass lightly, drawing everyone's attention. The room fell silent. My parents looked confused. A few people smiled, expecting a toast out instead. Lauren sighed dramatically. "I think before we celebrate," she said softly, "there's something that needs to be said. Something honest." My mother stiffened. Lauren pulled out her phone. "I never wanted to do this," she continued, glancing at me with false sympathy. "But I think it's important that everyone understands why Emily and I have had difficulties." My chest tightened, but I didn't move. She pressed play. The edited recording filled the room. My parents' harshest words echoed through the speakers. Gasps rippled across the room. Someone murmured my name. I could feel eyes turning toward me, pity, judgment, discomfort. Lauren paused the audio and shook her head sadly. "I didn't share this to hurt anyone," she said. "I just believed the truth should be heard." That was my cue. I stood up. The sound of my chair scraping against the floor cut through the silence. Lauren turned toward me, surprised. "Emily, I agree," I said calmly. "The truth should be heard." Her smile faltered. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the speaker before anyone could stop me. "I'd like to play something too," I said. "The full recording?" Lauren's face drained of color. Before she could react, I pressed play. This time, the room heard everything. My parents defending me. My mother saying she worried about me because she loved me. My father admitting his fear not disappointment. The context Lauren had removed. I watched as expressions changed around the room, confusion turning into realization. Then I spoke again, and I'd also like to show everyone something else. I displayed screenshots. On the TV screen timestamps, messages from Lauren bragging about controlling the narrative, admitting she edited the audio, laughing about how people would believe her. Gasps again. Louder this time, Lauren stepped forward, her voice sharp. "That's not fair, you're twisting things." I met her eyes for the first time that night. "No," I said evenly. "You did." I turned back to the room. "This isn't about revenge," I continued. "It's about context, about truth, about years of selective storytelling that made me question my own sanity." My mother covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. My father stood frozen. Lauren's confidence collapsed in real time. She tried to laugh. "You're all overreacting," but no one laughed with her. Questions started flying. "Why did you edit it? Why didn't you show the full conversation? How many times have you done this?" Lauren opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time in her life, she had no control over the story. The silence was deafening. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply said, "That's all." And I sat back down. Lauren didn't scream. She didn't explode. She just stood there, exposed, stripped of the image she had spent years carefully crafting, the weapon she used to humiliate. Me had turned on her. And everyone saw it. After the chaos of the recording reveal, the room was completely silent. For a few long moments, nobody moved. I could feel every eye on me, and of course on Lauren. She stood frozen, mouth open, like a deer caught in headlights. I realized then just how much power she had thought she had, and how quickly it had crumbled in the face of truth. I didn't gloat. I didn't yell. I simply let the silence speak for itself. The evidence, the full recording, the timestamps, the screenshots, they told the story better than I ever could. And in that quiet, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, control over my own life. Lauren's bravado had evaporated. She tried to defend herself, stammering, "This isn't fair. You're taking things out of context." But the room wasn't buying it. Every single person who had listened to both recordings could see the truth. She had manipulated, edited, and twisted reality to make herself look perfect and me look flawed. She had built her carefully curated image on lies, and tonight it had fallen apart. My parents were shaking, tears in their eyes. My mother reached over and took my hand. "Emily," she whispered, "we're so sorry." We never realized how much she had been manipulating the situation. "We were wrong." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "It's not just about being right or wrong," I said quietly. "It's about seeing the truth and understanding that it's never okay to manipulate people, especially family." I looked around at the family members who had gathered, cousins, aunts, uncles, even old family friends. The shift in the room was palpable. Lauren had been the puppet master for years, and suddenly the strings were visible to everyone. Her credibility, her charm, her carefully constructed image, they were all gone. Lauren didn't scream. She didn't storm out. She just stood there, stunned, and for the first time in years, she had no idea how to respond. Her usual confidence, the weapon she had used so effectively against everyone, had failed her. She had expected humiliation from me, but she didn't expect it to backfire so completely. After a long pause, my father spoke. "Lauren, we need to talk about this later. But for now, I want everyone to remember that family isn't about who's perfect. It's about honesty and love." The words hung in the air. Lauren lowered her gaze, not meeting anyone's eyes. I felt no satisfaction in seeing her humbled. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. It was about truth winning, and me finally being free from the weight of manipulation and lies taught as the evening progressed. I kept my distance from Lauren. I didn't yell at her, and I didn't confront her further. The evidence had done the work for me. I realized something important. Revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about reclaiming your own life, your peace, and your dignity. And tonight, I had done that. By the time the guests left, the tension had shifted. Conversations resumed, laughter returned, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at ease in my own skin. I could see my parents talking quietly among themselves, more reflective, more aware of the dynamics Lauren had created over the years. And I realized that while Lauren had lost her control over others, I had gained control over myself. Driving home later that night, the city lights blurring past my window, I thought about everything that had happened. I had felt hurt, humiliated, betrayed. I had spent weeks analyzing, planning, and preparing. And in the end, the thing that saved me wasn't anger or revenge, it was truth. The moment I stopped reacting blindly and started observing, listening, and documenting, everything changed. Lauren had taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Manipulation can hurt, and betrayal can cut deep, but truth, patience, and careful action can turn even the darkest situation around. I wasn't the powerless sister anymore. I was someone who had reclaimed her voice, her dignity, and her life. And as I parked my car and stepped out into the cool night air, I realized something else. Lauren might always be my sister, but she would never control me again. Sometimes the quiet victories are the strongest. And sometimes the message meant to break you is the one that sets you free.